being a contractor is not the same as being an architect. Contractors make decisions based on an entirely different set. Listen, I want to make sure that you understand that what you're doing here is very important because this is not unique to any one place in the world. It's not unique to the US or to Europe or to Africa or to Australia or Asia. This is a universal problem that's happening everywhere in the world. And the way we're going to solve it is what you're doing right now. The open conversation, talking to people around the world, finding out what our shared issues are, and trying to change the mindset.
Architect J. Williams, I want you to give us a brief overview of who you are as a person.
Okay, of who I am?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
All right. Well, I'm a little older than you. I grew up in the 1970s in the US, near New York City. This is where I am now. And I lived through the oil crises of the 1970s. There were two periods where people were waiting in lines for gas. So that made a big impression on me that energy and energy efficiency was going to be the future. So when I decided I want to be an architect, I wanted to focus on the energy efficiency and the economics of design.
Okay.
So that's what drives me.
All right. Based on the email initially, the whole direction towards where this interview is going is we want to have discussion on our environment, how problem isn't just our environment, but could it be the industry itself? Because I will start with this. In my country, Nigeria, most people are like they need to travel out of the country to become successful. So my question now to you is that the same structure we have here in Nigeria, is it also the same structure we have in America? Like, can you give me an overview of the structure we have in America, the architectural industry?
It's basically the same everywhere. Human beings are the same pretty much wherever you go. They carry the same biases and the same assumptions. So what makes architects valuable is their ability to create new building and balance that with the economics of actually building the building. That has value anywhere in the world. So you don't have to travel wherever you are. If you can communicate that to the people around you who need buildings. You can lower their risk. You can document all of the components that need to go into the building, integrate all of the components that need to go into the building, do it successfully, and create a beautiful, properly functioning building built for a reasonable money. You will be successful no matter where you are.
From your experience, do you think many of the frustrations architects experience today are actually symptoms of how the industry itself is structured? Or do you think it could be a problem within the country?
I don't think it's a country issue. I think it's really more about how architects are educated. They're educated to think primarily about design and to not think about the other aspects of how a building goes together. You need to be a well-rounded designer, a well-rounded architect. You need to understand the structure of a building. How do you put it together structurally, mechanically? Heating and air conditioning, electrically, lighting, managing daylighting, managing electrical use, fire protection, all of these things. And then, of course, coordinating all of the finishes that go into the building. And architects are extremely valuable because they coordinate all of this into a set of documents that then the contractor has to follow in order to successfully build the building.
So as a result of that, do you think it is the industry that is or should I say the architectural educational system that has a fault?
I think it's the profession's fault. I think architecture as a profession is not focused, or this is changing now, and you're part of the change because you're talking about these things. It used to be these things were not discussed, but it was all about the aesthetics of the design. And yes, we had to have mechanical systems. We hired engineers to do that. We had to have a structural system. We had hired engineers to do that. Electrical system. We hire engineers to do that. And we just are weren't as focused on it as we should have been.
Mhm.
That's my observation.
That kind of like makes a whole lot of sense. And I think, like, to me, I think most people, they think once they relocate, because I tend to have a lot of conversations with young architects. Most people, they think once they relocate to other countries, like the aspect of burnout, the aspect of working long hours, you kind of like eradicate. But if I am to say it, I feel as a profession or as a career, the industry is not directed towards the business part.
That's right.
Like, I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. Like, we
Yes.
are much more focused on getting the job done, not necessarily getting the job.
Right.
And as a result of that, there is a massive decline in the industry.
Well, when you say decline, what do you mean?
A lot of people are pitching like they are moving from architecture to another field.
Okay.
So if you, as a person that has been well versed in this industry and you have a whole amount of experience than I am, what will you say to the educational system, like the architectural educational system? Like, I
Yes.
feel we need to tackle that aspect first.
Let me give you a little bit of background about my education. Okay. I spent 3 years at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the US. And in that 3 years, I studied architecture for the first 2 years. And then the third year, I changed over to managerial economics. I wanted to study economics. I realized early on that they were not teaching us anything in the architecture program about the economics of design. The economics of design was my interest. I'm interested in beautiful buildings, but I am also interested in producing buildings that can be built in a cost-effective manner and be energy efficient. Because of my youth in dealing with the energy crises of the 1970s. So I took a year off essentially from architecture and studied economics for a year. I studied microeconomics, macroeconomics, econometrics, optimization. All of these things teach you about how materials, labor, and work together to create. So after I took that year off, I felt I had a very good background of what the economics of design meant. I then left Carnegie Mellon. I went back to New York City and I finished at Pratt Institute in New York City and I graduated with honors. And my degree is in architecture, but my background is the economics of design. And it's very important to understand that if you're going to practice as an architect, because you're going into a field that is very focused on getting things done in an economic way.
You studying architecture, you still need to become, like, you still need to do some exams to become a licensed architect.
That's right.
During the process of you not yet doing the license exam, can you still categorically call yourself an architect during that period, like when you're a student?
You mean when are you allowed to use the term architect to describe yourself?
Yes.
Okay, in the US, you need to pass all the exams and get a license before you can call yourself an architect. That was the question, right?
Yeah, it was. But don't you think, I don't know, but from my own point of view, I mean, using Nigeria as an example, I went to ND, National Diploma, and I spent 2 years. Then from there, I went to the university for BSc, and I spent roughly 5 years. That's 7 years. Now, I'm currently processing my master's. I have spent at least almost roughly 9 years of my life, or should I say like 7 years? Let me just put it roughly. I need to
I
spend
understand.
at least 10 years, and I've already spent at least 7 years of my life. Can't I still call myself, like, once people term me as an architect, can't I still say, yes, fine, I know I'm not a licensed architect, but then I am still already in the field. Can't I still call myself an architect?
Yeah, I understand that frustration. I hear it from young architects or young people waiting to take the exam here in the US also. I didn't make the rules. You asked me what the rule was. Personally, I think the term architect has a legal meaning and you don't want to confuse the public. Architect means someone with a license, but they should develop a term that is appropriate to those who are studying to be architects so that they can simply have a way to describe themselves that is aspirational towards becoming an architect. So, architect in training. We also sometimes use the term architect anatorum. It means aspiring to be an architect.
Okay, okay. So moving back to major focus. A lot of we young architects, we are talented. obviously. So why do you think talent alone is no longer enough to survive in this industry?
I don't know. Again, I think it's the industry's fault. I think it's the profession's fault. They didn't plan properly for how people would make a living doing this. And unfortunately for myself, I recognized that very early on. And I have a traditional practice. I meet the client, I develop the designs, I design the structural, I do the calculations, the mechanical, the electrical, the plumbing, everything. So I have a very traditional practice, but I integrate everything into what I do as an architect. So that made it much easier for me to make a living. Did not have a problem making a living doing this. And I did not have to work endless hours either.
What is that skill that you think we as young architects we need to learn? And it's, I mean, the industry, or should I say the educational system of the architectural industry, they don't make it mandatory. I mean, fine, they make designs mandatory. Obviously, there are lots of AIs that can do design now. So
Right.
what is that skill that you think as a young architect we need to put more emphasis on to be able to survive in this industry?
You need to learn the economics of design. You need to supplement your education by taking additional courses that teach you about microeconomics, macroeconomics, econometrics, optimization, things like that. These are very important to develop your sense of not only how buildings go together, but how a business is run. So if you have those skills in addition to your architecture degree, you will be much more valuable to a firm that is looking to hire. Another way to do it, in addition to the economics, is also to go work on a construction site because construction sites are a microcosm of society. And you will learn a lot about how you, as an architect, fit into that whole scheme of creating the building. If you work on a construction site.
Okay. Do you think architecture education prepared people for the survival, business, communication, and the industry realities, or
It
is just
it
mostly the technical aspect?
Well, I'm a little concerned that students aren't getting the technical training that they need either. But we have to adapt. If you want to be an architect, you need to understand that the education that you get from universities is not enough. It's not going to be enough. So even though you finish and you have that beautiful diploma, which represents a lot of hard work, a lot of sweat, a lot of tears, a lot of nasty crits, and I went through it too. You need more than that to be successful. You just need more. Another thing that I recognized early on is right away in my first year, right at the beginning of my education, I sought internships. I worked in an architect's office for the summers and went back in the fall to continue my schooling. And I saw firsthand problems that can develop in a firm because of a lack of business knowledge. And that further drove me to understand the economics of design because I could see what happens when there was not an understanding of the economics of design. So I worked all the way through college. So when I graduated, I had my degree in architecture. I had the additional economics background that I wanted from school, and I had the practical knowledge of having worked in an office for 6 years.
So if I am to understand correctly, economics of design, is it almost the same thing as project management, or they are different?
Economics of design is completely different from project management.
Okay, so based on your experience, do you think when young architects should focus more on economics of design, or is it possible also we kind of like move towards project management?
You can learn project management, but that is not what I'm talking about. If you, I don't know if you're familiar with my website, but I have a very reasonably short description of what I call econo-functional aesthetic balance, EFABism as a style name. That philosophy of design describes exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about the economics of design as it relates to architects. But if you want to go into project management, and at Pratt Institute in New York, they had a parallel school to the architecture school. They had a school of construction management, and the construction management students and the architecture students took a lot of the same courses. Okay, so you can go that route, but that's a separate degree track, and it has different focus. But that is a way to do it. I prefer to go right for the economic education to learn the why the industry operates the way it does, why decisions get made for certain reasons. It helps you to understand risk. Clients fear risk more than anything else. If you can explain to them that you are there to help them reduce their risk, they will want to work with you.
So, because I've been trying to pitch, or should I say, I am trying to tilt towards project management. For me, hearing of economics of design now, I am trying to have probably a rethink and then just move. Because obviously, we've literally downplayed our role to just being draftsmen. And I'm like, since it's obvious that this route is literally not what is expected, then probably I should just go in the route of project management. Because I feel that way I'll be able to interact more with the client. But if it is just based on just an architect designing, once I'm done designing, that is all. Like the client will never want to have anything to do with me except if there's a major issue. So what do you think we as architects we can do to still be relevant in a project lifespan?
Okay. You have to be careful with the word design. The word design has been corrupted by other professions, such as interior designers, construction contractors, construction managers. I don't actually describe what I do as design. I describe myself as an integrator. As an architect, I integrate building systems, aesthetics, and the beauty of the design is a system in the building, the engineering that goes in, the function of the building, all of the aspects that create a whole building are integrated by me. And I am an architect, but I describe myself as an integrator, not a designer.
Wow. Like I would say this is the first time of hearing this. This is literally the first time of hearing this. So as an architect, we should introduce ourselves as an integrator, not
That's
a
right.
designer.
As an integrator. Because if you talk to them as a designer, they immediately think, oh, we're here to pick the color of the wall. It's so much more than that. And as an architect, you blend beauty, you blend history, you blend engineering, you blend economics, whether you know it or not. So you need to integrate those things in a manner that results in the end in a functional, beautiful, and productive building.
Gee, that was like that was
When you get a chance, go to Google, type in econo-functional aesthetic balance in architecture, and read where it takes you. And if
moving on.
we all do this, the profession will survive and thrive.
When we focus more on the word integrating, not designing.
I don't use the word design to I mean, I use the word design because people kind of think about it, but, a structural engineer design, an interior decorator, an interior designer designs, architect designs, but they do it differently. So we need to set ourselves apart from all that design noise so that our clients will understand that we're here to integrate all of the parts and manage all of the parts as they come together. And that's what the documents are for. You talked about us being reduced to drafts people, but we can't really be reduced to drafts people because when we are documenting the design, we need to make sure that we integrate the heating and air conditioning system in with the structural system. You can't have ductwork running through steel beams. So this is part of what we do. We integrate and we check and we make sure that all of these systems can function together to create a whole building, which is what the client is desirous of.
So I feel this my next question. It is a question that quite a lot of people they tend to avoid. Do you think some architects? I mean, I think some architects they believe that if they relocate, it is going to solve the current problem we are experiencing in this industry. Do you think relocation is going to solve that problem?
Here's the thing about relocation, and you're going to love this answer because I'm going to answer it in terms of economics.
Okay.
Uh, the economics that I learned also explains this. What happens is in cities like New York, I'll use New York as an example, there is such a high level of design. The clients that operate in that design marketplace expect the very best design that you can possibly produce, and they are willing to pay for it. As you get further away from major metropolises around the world, it's less so about the beauty of the design and more about the function and the productive nature of the design. So, what happens is architects that are trained and focused so heavily on design will want to congregate around large cities in order to be able to have their talent utilized fully. And that's an economic problem that can be overcome by the individual who wants to be an architect if they understand what drives it. So you do not need to relocate in order to do this if you understand that. But relocation to London, to Paris, to New York, to any major city where there's a lot of construction going on is a strategy, but it is not the only strategy.
Yeah, I think fine environment it does matters, but like as you said, it is an individual thing. I mean, if you where you are, I mean, using myself as an example, as a Nigerian, all I'm thinking about is I just want to keep designing, keep designing. If I travel to United States, that is also the same mindset
Yes.
that we bring. So I feel it's kind of like starts with the way we think. So necessarily, I won't say the environment influences us? Is it like we influence the environment then?
That's the way it's supposed to work. We are the ones with the knowledge to create the structures that will then influence the rest of the world, rest of what people see. People are influenced by what they see. And of course, these buildings need to be made real. In order to make a building real, you need to build it. So that means the contractor needs to account for labor, materials. Are there materials that are not available, or are there materials that are more readily available? You have to think about these things while you're creating the documentation of the building so that the contractor can execute it in an efficient manner. And that saves more money than anything else. When the client understands that that's what you're trying to do, you're trying to help them achieve their goals, create a beautiful building, a functional building, and have it be built economically and in a manner that makes sense with no waste or little waste. They're going to want to work with you no matter where you are.
Makes sense. So for the young architect that is watching you now, like I mean that is watching us now, that is tired, that feels burnt out, that is thinking relocation is going to be what would save him. Fine, I know you've mentioned the aspect of economics design. What other skill do you think they should focus more on?
The economics of design is an overarching, fully encompassing subject, but it's unique to every location. So no matter if you want to relocate for the other reasons I said, where you want to focus solely on creating beautiful buildings and you're not really concerned about integrating the other engineering in, then you're going to want to relocate. But before you do that, take some time to understand the economics of where you are locally, economics of design as it applies to where you are now. Because as you develop an understanding of that, that will help you after you relocate, because the economics of design is going to be different where you're going than where you. So if you understand what's driving it where you are, you'll be better able to adapt when you arrive wherever it is that you're headed towards.
I think I need to go and learn more about this economics of design because my point of view here in Nigeria, it seems as if we tend to, as an architect, we tend to glorify designs.
Of course.
When I mean design, I mean we focus more on the 3D visualization, on the animation, and I think it is literally an ego thing. Like when I mean ego, it's more like we are trying to display our expertise to people who are much more interested in how we will solve their problems.
Right.
So most of the time it is more like we tend to focus more on the 3Ds. Most people don't even, I mean, probably in this aspect of our side, we are not really that focused on how to make the client feel seen, but more like we want to be seen.
The architects need to learn something, and it's a hard lesson. Okay. The aesthetics that you create in your buildings is only one third of the total design of the building. It's not even half from the perspective of the client and the building users. You need to take off your architect hat and put on your building user hat, okay, or building owner hat. The function of that building and how it gets built and how much it costs is more than half of what the client is focused. So if you want to get hired, you need to pay attention to those things as well as the aesthetic intent. So flashy renderings may not necessarily be the right strategy.
Or do you think clients will be able to pay for um, that amount of workload?
When you say amount of workload, what do you mean?
Let's say there are some people that once you tender, it's going to be based on percentage. But
Okay.
then there are some people, or should I say there are some clients that they might necessarily not have that amount to pay.
Well, you have to screen your clients. If they don't have enough money to compensate you properly to create a fully coordinated design, including aesthetics, function, and economics, they don't have enough money to build the building in the first place because the percentage that is paid to the architect is a relatively small percentage in relationship to the total cost of the construction.
Oh, that's true. I feel, I mean, based on my little experience, I feel probably it could be they see we young architects as they don't think we have enough experience to bring what they want to reality. So in that, probably they don't trust our expertise. Now,
But
as
why is that?
I feel it's probably the way the industry is.
Then the industry has to change. When a client calls me to find out if they want to use me on a project, I ask them, what do you want this building to do? What are your goals for this project? And I always say, don't tell me what your budget is. Tell me what you want this building to do. Tell me, what kind of expectation you have for level of finishes and the functional aspects of it and timeline and all of these things. And I I spend a little bit of time because I have a lot of experience now analyzing that. And when I get back to them, I tell them, okay, this is what I can do for you. And by the way, the building is going to cost you 10 million to build or 10.25 million to build. I actually make those calculations and I'm usually pretty close. And that usually gets their attention. I have an architect here who actually cares that I'm spending enough money to achieve my goals. And if the client says to me, well, I only have 5 million, then I say, well, then you can only build half the building. And a lot of them don't know that.
Okay, so moving on to that, you being an experienced architect and me being someone that is just coming up. Let's say I got, or let me just use people over there. Let's say someone that looks up to you got a client directly. I mean, as a direct brief.
Okay.
Obviously, he probably is just trying to just learn. Will you advise that he brings the project to you, or will you mentor him to handle the project on his own?
I have plenty of work. I'm not looking for projects coming from other architects. I would encourage whoever it is to become more aware of the how the profession operates in the grand scheme of construction of buildings. So there, look, listen, I didn't have the internet when I was in college. We didn't have that. We had the library at the university, and we had a contact with our professors, and we just had to absorb as much as we could. When I studied economics, my professors didn't know anything about how to put buildings, but I learned from them concepts as to how these decisions get made, the mathematics that goes in. I would suggest young architects try to learn that. And you can learn it without, you don't need formal university training to understand economics. I'll give you an example. People talk about real estate. They talk about the three most important things in real estate are location, location, location. And the reason for that is the location has a certain sale price for buildings in that area. Okay. So whatever that sale price, let's say about a neighborhood of home. If you're gonna build a home and you want to make a profit by selling it at the end, when you need to understand the economics of that neighborhood, what is a house of that size selling for right now? and you work backwards from that to make the decisions about how big it's gonna be, what's gonna be in it. If you hire an architect who's only concerned about design and he comes back to you with a beautiful design that costs 3 times as much as the sale price of the houses in that area, the client's gonna think you're crazy. So you
That's
need to
true.
address that, and you need to the number one thing is the client needs to understand that you're there to help them achieve their goals, whatever their goals are. Okay? They have tons of money and they don't care about budget. That's great. You can do that. If they do care about money and they're on a budget, you need to care about that. You also want them to understand that you're there to help them to mitigate risk. You will help them by producing a detailed set of properly integrated documents. There's the word integrated again. That reduces their risk as they go to the contractor because the contractor will be able to execute from those documents in an efficient way, and that will save thousands and thousands of dollars. So it's a smart thing for a client to hire an architect that's interested in helping them achieve their goals and to minimize their risk.
We advise an architect to pursue a career in being a contractor.
Yes, you can do that, but being a contractor is not the same as being an architect. Contractors make decisions based on an entirely different set of data points.
Okay.
Contractor is not an artist. The architect is the artist. The architect is going to be trying to protect the integrity of the design and make decisions that will do that. Contractor is not interested in the integrity of the design. He's interested in producing the building and making a profit. And there's nothing wrong with that thinking, but that is not the way an architect is trained to think.
So, if I am to understand correctly, we being an integrator of our ideas, does that mean I mean, on a building project, I don't think we need a project manager.
Yeah, well, if you're interested in that, then certainly look into that and add that to your skill set as an architect. But if you're going to do that and only that, you're not an architect anymore because you're making decisions based on different data and with a different look for a different outcome.
Okay. How frequent should an architect go to site?
I go to sites as often as I can. I love it. The best part for me is when the building starts to get built. I always joke with my clients. I say, when I look at your building, even though it's half done, in my head, I see it finished and it's going to be amazing.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Like I'll say I learned a lot, a lot in this episode, and I'm very, very sure a lot of people also kind of like learn. And thank you so much for coming on this
You're very
show.
welcome.
And to kind of like add this to it, because I and my team, we just started like a monthly discussion. We intend to just keep bringing architects all around the world as much as possible to kind of like have an understanding of what goes outside school. I mean, fine, school is good, but then there are some things that are being done that we not really get the memo when we're in school. We're just kind of like understanding when we're outside trying to do this whole research and all. So I really appreciate you for sparing your time because I know you're a very, very busy man. I really appreciate you for sparing your time to come
No problem.
on the show. And this will not be the last podcast I'm having with you. Like I am still going to call you and feature you on my other podcast. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you
Oh,
for your
now that I
time.
know you should contact me. Listen, I want to make sure that you understand that what you're doing here is very important because this is not unique to any one place in the world. It's not unique to the US or to Europe or to Africa or to Australia or Asia. This is a universal problem that's happening everywhere in the world. And the way we're going to solve it is what you're doing right now. The open conversation, talking to people around the world, finding out what our shared issues are, and trying to change the mindset. Again, human beings are the same everywhere. They have the same kind of biases. They have the same kind of thinking. So we have to make sure that we communicate on a level that makes them understand that we're here to help them, and we want to help them, and we want to be fairly compensated for our talents. So that's important work. I'm very glad that you're doing this. There are some others out there doing the same thing. But get the message out, and feel free to look at my website.
Yeah,
My
sure.
website contains a lot of information about this, and and I'm happy to talk with you again.
And to everyone watching, if this conversation resonates with you, share it with an architect trying to navigate the profession, a young designer feeling stuck, or someone who thinks changing environment automatically solves everything. Follow Beyond the Drawing Board for honest conversation around architecture, business growth, and the realities behind the industry. I'm Olusegun Majiagbe, and I'll see you on the next episode.